The history of Uruguay began long before Christ, when the territory of present-day Uruguay was inhabited by indigenous peoples, most notably the Charrua, Chana, and Guarani. Archaeological evidence shows that humans lived in the region at least 10,000 years before Christ. These early societies lived mainly as hunters and gatherers, organized in small communities, and adapted closely to the natural environment of grasslands, rivers, and coastal areas. The first recorded contact with Europeans occurred in the year 1516 after Christ, when the Spanish explorer Juan Diaz de Solis arrived at the estuary of the Rio de la Plata. During this encounter, Solis was killed by indigenous inhabitants, and for several decades the region remained largely unsettled by Europeans. In the 16th and 17th centuries after Christ, Spain and Portugal competed for influence over the territory. Although neither power initially established strong permanent settlements due to the absence of precious metals and strong resistance from indigenous groups. In the year 1624 after Christ, the Portuguese founded the settlement of Colonia do Santíssimo Sacramento on the northern bank of the Rio de la Plata, directly opposite Buenos Aires. This strategic location caused repeated military and diplomatic conflicts between Portugal and Spain. Throughout the 17th and 18th centuries after Christ, control over the region shifted multiple times. Eventually, in the year 1777 after Christ, the Treaty of San Ildefonso formally assigned the territory to Spain. Montevideo, the future capital of Uruguay, was founded in the year 1726 after Christ as a Spanish military outpost to counter Portuguese expansion. During the late 18th century after Christ, cattle ranching expanded rapidly, forming the economic foundation of the region and shaping its rural culture. In the early 19th century after Christ, the territory became involved in the broader South American independence movements. In the year 1811 after Christ, José Gervasio Artigas led an uprising against Spanish colonial rule. Artigas became the central figure of Uruguayan national identity, advocating republicanism, federalism, and social equality. He formed the League of Free Peoples, which sought autonomy for the provinces of the Rio de la Plata region. Following conflicts involving Spain, Portugal, Brazil, and the United Provinces of the Rio de la Plata, the territory was annexed by Brazil in the year 1821 after Christ and renamed the Cisplatin province. Resistance continued, and on the 25th day of August in the year 1825 after Christ, independence was declared. The independence of Uruguay was internationally recognized in the year 1828 after Christ, with the signing of the Treaty of Montevideo, establishing Uruguay as a sovereign and neutral state between Argentina and Brazil. Throughout the 19th century after Christ, Uruguay experienced prolonged internal conflict, mainly between the Blanco Party and the Colorado Party. These struggles resulted in civil wars and political instability, but also contributed to the formation of modern state institutions. During the late 19th century after Christ, Uruguay benefited from large-scale European immigration, particularly from Spain and Italy, which influenced its culture, language, and social structure. At the beginning of the 20th century after Christ, Uruguay entered a period of political reform and modernization under President José y Ordóñez, who served from the year 1903 after Christ onward. His reforms included the introduction of social welfare programs, labor rights, free public education, the separation of church and state, and the expansion of state-owned enterprises. These policies transformed Uruguay into one of the most progressive societies of its time. During the mid-20th century after Christ, particularly in the 1950s after Christ, Uruguay experienced economic prosperity and high living standards. However, economic stagnation, rising inflation, and social unrest emerged in the 1960s and 1970s after Christ. In the year 1973 after Christ, a military dictatorship seized power, suspending democratic institutions and committing widespread human rights violations. The military regime lasted until the year 1985 after Christ, when democratic governance was restored through elections. Since then, Uruguay has maintained a stable democratic system and strengthened its legal and institutional framework. In the early 21st century after Christ, Uruguay implemented progressive social policies, including the legalization of abortion, same-sex marriage, and the regulated sale of cannabis. Economically, the country diversified into services, technology, and renewable energy while maintaining strong agricultural exports. Today, in the 21st century after Christ, Uruguay is recognized as one of the most politically stable, socially inclusive, and economically developed countries in South America, with a strong commitment to democracy, human rights, and social equality.